It's a beautiful Thursday morning here in Lagos. Good morning, everyone, and thank you for joining us. I am Nifemi Oguntoye. It's only 6 days into the year, but it seems as if we've gone really far with some of the news events that we're recording, particularly here in Lagos. The governor met with different parties as regards the land dispute in Magodo yesterday. We're hearing updates on the investigation into the building collapse late last year. And also there are reports that the Lagos state government has exonerated some of the people involved in the very sad incident that took the life of Sylvester Oromoni Jr. We'll be talking about quite a number of this development. So if you live and do business in Lagos, it's your show this morning. And there's no better person to talk about all of the events in Lagos than the Lagos State Commissioner for Information and Strategy, Benga Omotosho. Happy New Year, sir, and thank you for finding time to come.
Yeah, same to you.
Let me begin by saying congratulations on your Dame Honorary Fellowship. Just 2 more wins. Yeah. All right, let's begin very quickly with the meeting we saw yesterday. The governor is saying he's going to provide 549 plots of land to Shangisha landlords as compensation. Are these lands that are already or that currently belong to the state government, or government is planning to purchase these lands from other people?
Well, first, let me just say that there has been so much commendation about the way the governor, Mr. Baide Sanwo-Olu, has gone about this matter so that there will be peace in the state. The judgment, as you know, is the judgment of the Supreme Court, which states expressly that the Shangisha Landlords Association should be giving 549 plots in the state. And the government said, well, for peace to reign, we are going to obey this judgment. This judgment is far older than the administration of Mr. Baide Sanwo-Olu. They is bent on resolving the matter, and that is why he called all the parties to a meeting yesterday. It was a well-attended meeting, and everybody was satisfied. And the governor said, go to that particular place and look for land. If you have some plots of land there, we will give to them. If we don't have enough, then we will go into other schemes owned by the state.
Making reference to the state government, if the government has land there, is that what you're saying?
Yes. Okay. If there is land there, we are going to give to them. And the people themselves, they are for peace, and they said so. They commended the governor for showing leadership, for showing that he is sincere to resolve this matter that has gone on for long and long, that almost resulted in violence a few days ago. The governor himself had to go to Magodo to settle things. And they are saying that if you give us any number that you can give us in Magodo, that's fine by us. Then you go and give us the others. And already they have a list of people who are there. And the governor said, well, we are going to deal with everybody. In fact, those ones that we can't even fight, I will hold the land for them in trust. And everybody applauded what he did yesterday. So we are all looking forward to a peaceful time, a time that everybody concerned with this matter that has gone on since for several years, we'll be pleased with how the state government is going to resolve it.
Just a little bit of more clarity. So if there are not enough land in Shangisha, what are the other alternatives? Is government planning to pay or get land in other areas?
There is land in other areas that the government can give them. In actual fact, twice they've been offered places. They've been offered Badagry, they've been offered
which is very far away from here.
Maybe because of that, they said no. But they are not so rigid about it. What they are saying is that they believe there is still land in Magodo. If you give us just some plots in Magodo, then we won't mind taking the balance in any other place that we may choose. And that is where we are now. And the government has said, okay, we look into Magodo, whatever is there, we find it, and then we give to you. And then the rest we give to you in other places. And so there will be peace. Everybody is happy.
Is there a time frame for the execution of this particular decision?
I think by next week Friday, by this Friday, the committee set up by the governor to look into this matter, headed by the Attorney General, Moyosore Onigbanjo, SAN, is going to meet and then get back to the governor, and then they will map out how to go about looking for plots in Magodo. The Surveyor General is there, the PS Land is there, and all of the other people, HC Environment is there, all of the other people who are concerned about that place, who know what should be done about that place and how to settle these people in environment, in drainage, and lands. So they are going into Magodo to look at it, and whatever they find, they will report back to the governor, who has shown sincerity in settling the matter.
Let's talk about what appeared to be a confrontation between Mr. Governor and the Chief Superintendent of Police in Magodo. The governor had given an order, and it looked like an open defiance to Mr. Governor's order for them to vacate the Magodo Phase 2 estate. There's a lot of reaction to the Southwest governors have condemned the development, faulting the rules of the IGP and the AGF in it. It has even again brought up the conversation whether the police are directly answerable to the state governor. How's the government reacting to this?
Well, the government is taking it easy. As you can see, the matter has gone beyond us, because people have seen it as a matter that speaks to our true federalism, our call for state police, our call for the call for restructuring, and people who are saying that if we must practice our democracy very well, and if we must have our democracy in a manner that will not just be democracy as an end in itself, but as a means to an end, and that end is generally described as good governance, that this kind of thing should not be happening. You have a police officer who is operating in your state. This one even sent from Abuja, and then it's not answerable to the governor, and the governor himself had to move into that place in Magodo because there were calls that there was going to be violence, people carrying guns, the police carrying guns, people bringing out their dogs, and people scared that their homes could be demolished. So the governor had to go there himself, and then after talking to Attorney General of the Federation, who said he didn't expect the policemen to be there, that he had given them instruction to pull out. And then they were still there. That was why the governor said, okay, let me see the head of the team. And when he saw the head of the team, a CSP, he engaged him. And then the man did what he did. And like you have said, the governor's forum has come out to say that that's unacceptable. So many civil society organizations, they've come out to say it's unacceptable. And that the governor of Lagos State should be able to give an order in Lagos, and then that order is obeyed. But like I have said, people have said, without state police, the security challenges we have in Nigeria will not go away very soon. And that all of the things that happened in Magodo, they have shown that we really need to reopen the conversation about true federalism, about the police, about having state police, that if you don't control the police, despite the fact that you fund them, you give them equipment, you give them moral support, you do everything for them to be able to do their job easily, yet you do not have a say in how they operate. And they think that that kind of system is not good at all, and that whatever we can do to straighten things, we should be able to do. And I think that is where the thing is. But since that incident, the state government has not said anything. We have kept quiet. But as you can see, like I have said, the discussion has moved beyond us. It's become something being discussed in the public space.
The Attorney General of the Federation, however, has responded. I'm going to read to you an excerpt from a spokesperson. And it says, quote, "It's a common knowledge that execution of the judgment and orders of course of competent jurisdiction and the court of last resort in the circumstances remains a cardinal component of the rule of law and office of the Attorney General. And they wonder how maintenance of that law and order in the course of the execution of the judgment of the Supreme Court can be adjudged by imagination of the governors to be unruly." End quote. It's saying in simple terms that why did it take so long? A Supreme Court judgment that was, gotten as far back as 2012, there were failed attempts to enforce it between that time and 2015, and there was then a settlement initiative which kick-started as far back as 2016. The question on the lips of many might also be why the delay? One would think that government would have executed the judgment more promptly. The antecedent has been that even when you get a judgment from the Supreme Court, then you will now engage in another dramatic force to enforce it.
Well, I am not a lawyer, but I will not also want to engage the Attorney General of the Federation over this kind of matter. Like I have said, I'm not a lawyer and I'm not competent to speak on what the law is saying about all of that. But the little that I've heard, the little that I have discovered in my discussions with very senior lawyers is that when you have that kind of judgment and you want to execute it, you come to the Lagos High Court, and then the High Court will now provide sheriffs and who will now come there. And all these guys who came to execute the judgment in a manner that has caused so much uproar in the state, they came all the way from Abuja. The state High Court did not know about it, neither did the state police command. And I feel that that kind of thing, like people have said, it's a recipe for anarchy. If you send in policemen to Lagos State to enforce a judgment of either the Supreme Court or any court for that matter, and then the people who are supposed to do that job, the sheriffs, they do not know anything about it, but just a group of policemen coming and marking people's houses. But that is not just the point that I would like to make. The point that I would like to make is that in all sincerity and with all sense of responsibility, the governor, Mr. Baide Sanwo-Olu, wants to settle this matter without anybody prompting him, without any incident occurring at Magodo. Mr. Baide Sanwo-Olu set up a committee on these and other matters that they should go and look at it and see how the state can resolve such matters. And that of Magodo in particular, I remember a couple of weeks ago, one commissioner, the commissioner for fiscal planning, was briefing me about how the matter will be settled, among other matters. So when this uproar in Magodo happened, and we were surprised that it came about at all. And the governor stepped in, he spoke with the Attorney General, he spoke with the IG, and then the police were expected to, at that point, pull back. But immediately after the holidays, they went about marking people's homes and then threatening people that they will pull down their homes and all of that. No governor who is responsible, like Mr. Baide Sanwo-Olu, we look at this kind of thing and then allow it to go like that. So when it was becoming something that could be violent, he now moved into Magodo. I was with him and then spoke to all sides and spoke to that gentleman, the policeman, at that time. And he spoke with the Attorney General of the Federation and the IG. And in fairness to them, they asked the policeman to stand down. And the next day, he organized a meeting. But like I said, the lawyers have told me how you execute that kind of judgment, that when you have a judgment of the Supreme Court all the way from Abuja, then you come to the local scene and then engage the judiciary here, and then they will provide you with sheriffs who will go and then join you in executing the judgment. But what people have seen in Magodo is that the guys who have come all the way from Abuja, FCT, Police Command, Police Headquarters, and all of that they see them as an army of occupation. And they feel that with the sitting government in place, that should not be. And that's why Mr. Baide Sanwo-Olu went in there. So there is no argument about what the Attorney General said at all. He spoke in his own right as Attorney General, and he has a right to so speak.
The question would now be, are we sure that what happened in Shangisha some 38 years ago isn't happening right now? I understand that the state government has a special task force on land grabbers, and they have a mandate to rid the state of land grabbers, and they have received petitions and several other criminal prosecution cases against suspected land grabbers in that light. What are the steps that you think are ongoing to ensure that we don't see a situation where lands are given illegally within the geographical zone called Lagos?
There are so many steps. First, the state government is trying to revolutionize the administration of land in Lagos. We are going to go the technology way. All of the land that we have in Lagos, the land papers, they are being scanned as I speak with you now and being put in a system so that when you go to Alausa, the government seat of power, to check for land, you want to buy a piece of land, you want to do any business, anything that has to do with land, just at the touch of button, you see everything about that particular land. So the quarrel about who is taking somebody's land, who is buying land, who is being scammed, all of that will be out of it. And very soon, I think first quarter of this year, that system should go live. And once you have that kind of thing, technology will be able to resolve that problem, and then there won't be anything like that again. And the state committee looking into such matters as we have in Magodo, like I said, is very active. It's headed by the Attorney General of and Commissioner for Justice. And so it's a very powerful, serious committee of very senior people who will ensure that this kind of thing no longer happens in any part of the state.
You're saying that those who have CFOs and governor's permit in Lagos can sleep with both of their eyes closed?
Oh, sure, sure.
Let's turn to other issues now. We heard yesterday about a report coming from the Tribunal of Inquiry submitting its report on the Ikoyi building collapse. You followed that story, gave press briefing from the site. However, we also hear that top Lagos officials have now been indicted in that report, and that the tribunal itself was quoted to have pointed out that most incidences of building collapses are rooted, number one, in collapse of values, morals, ethics, which the state and indeed Nigeria needs to work on to avert needless deaths and sorrow. Have you seen that report?
I haven't seen the report. It was submitted to the governor yesterday. And after the submission of the report, that was when we went into the meeting with the Shangisha Landlords Association and Magodo Residents Association. So nobody has seen that report. I'm sure the governor himself wouldn't have had the time to even open it. So if anybody is making speculations about who is indicted, who is not indicted, well, they are free
but
to
you
say
expect government officials to be indicted, don't you?
I do not want to preempt what is in the report. That would be unfair to the people who prepare the report and the government officials who may be involved by way of their duties. So it's not good for me to stand here and begin to make speculations when the report is there, and then people have been appointed to go and read it and then bring it up to the Executive Council, and then the Executive Council will now state what to do about it.
So as at this point, we don't know what's in that report. However, we know that the tribunal has sought protection of its members. It stated yesterday that it acted strictly based on the information at its disposal and would not want to be labeled as villains for discharging the assignment without sentiment and prejudice. And you know, there's a track record to this, particularly with the experience with the panel that investigated the NSAS case in Lagos. Not only did the government disagree with some of its findings, some of the panel members at the time came up to show concerns about their safety. What, there are a few questions here. Will this report be made public, or Lagosians will have to just settle with government's white paper?
I think the sentence that you have read out is with due respect to people who are reading, is a kind of, they see it as a kind of sophistry, you know, semantics and all of that. If they are saying that they are seeking protection, it doesn't mean that they expect violence. What they are saying is that they are professionals. You will recall that when the panel was set up, some people were saying that it should have been headed by a structural engineer. Others were saying that a town planner should not be the one to head it, that after you must have started building, that the job of the town planner ends, and that this kind of investigative panel looking into the collapse of a building should be headed by an engineer. So all kind of questions. That is what, in my own view, and from my own reading of it, I listen to the man. That's what he's saying. He's not talking about attacks from anybody. He's talking about attacks on his professional competence and integrity. You know, everything, when this kind of thing happens in Nigeria, everybody becomes an expert. A doctor now becomes a building expert. You see engineers who will even look away when they are talking about this kind of matter. When journalists are now, you know, projecting, proposing, and then talking about all of those technical things that most of us are not competent to talk about. That is what the man is talking about.
Talking about experts, I spoke with one this morning who headed, just give me a minute to find that information. He headed the panel inaugurated sometime in 2019 by the preceding government that Sanwo-Olu take over from. And I was asking him precisely if he had some unresolved concerns about the report he had submitted to government in 2019. I'm going to quote him now. There was no follow-up from government officials concerning issuance of white paper on the report. This could be attributed to the transition period between the last and present administrations. However, governance is supposed to be a continuous process. Administrative lapses can be suicidal, like the unfortunate one we experienced lately, end quote. I believe he was referring to the Ikoyi incident. So the Ikoyi collapse is just one case. We heard that there have been about 50 building collapses in Lagos since 2015 or 2013, thereabout, making it the epicenter of building collapse in Nigeria. This individual who led the similar panel under this administration is saying that there was no white paper. One would have thought that it's an APC government, and APC to APC government, there should be an issue like that. Can this problem be dealt with in isolation without going back to some of the things that have happened prior to 2021?
I suspect if you listen to the speech of the chairman of this panel, Champ Planner, Tony Ainde, you will know that he also recognized the things that happened in the past, not only in Lagos State, but generally in Nigeria, to talk about why buildings go down suddenly. And I feel strongly that it may be part of the report to say that, to refer to the report that you have just spoken about, and then to see whether there are similarities in that report and the new one that have been submitted. But all I can say is that Mr. Baide Sanwo-Olu is sincere, he is determined to see that this kind of incident doesn't happen again. Because anytime you have this kind of thing, human lives lost, it diminishes all of us, and it makes nonsense of whatever we are doing, because everything is for us to be able to satisfy all of us that human lives matter. So whatever happens and then people die, for us, we should be able to find out and then ensure that that kind of thing does not happen again. And that is why we set up that kind of committee of very, very strong experts, professionals, and men of integrity in their own rights. And I believe that whatever they have done, with the way Mr. Baide Sanwo-Olu is handling it and bringing it back to the Executive Council, there is nobody that will be able to change that decision. The recommendations that we stop this kind of calamity from befalling us again, there is no way we are not going to implement such recommendations. So what the man is saying, he should not preempt the action of the government. We don't have to be presumptuous about it.
So I'm going to ask again, do you expect this report to be made public, seeing the controversy that followed the leaked document of the NSAS report?
Of course, with technology nowadays and the sincerity of the government, there is nothing that is going to be secret about the report. Because what happened in the open, and there is no way that experts will look at it and make recommendations, and then people will not know about the report.
Long after work stopped on the Gerard Road building, there were complaints from neighbors that a stench was coming from the site. Long after evacuation has ceased, would you say that due diligence was done to account for everybody in that rubble?
Of course, it took several weeks for the rescuers to leave that place. And, everything nowadays is based on technology. They deployed technology to ensure that nobody was left in that rubble. And they actually got to ground zero. They saw everything, the foundation. They got to ground zero. They picked every thing that you could find on that site to ensure that nobody was left there. But when that kind of thing happens, I mean, it's very simple for us to know as a layman that because you couldn't get all the bodies out at the same time, it's, people may have, bodies may have been there that couldn't be picked at the same time, like I said. So it's not unusual for that kind of odor to be coming out of the place. That does not mean that somebody was left behind.
Were there any official reports of missing persons in that area? that you are aware of?
We haven't heard of any. People came and said that, well, we are looking for our relation, and they were asked to do DNA test, and they did DNA test, and the results came, and people have been coming to match the bodies, and they've been taking their bodies and burying them, and commending the government for not just doing the DNA that made them to be able to identify their relations, but for giving them even money to go and, you know, transport the bodies for burial. So we've had people writing to us and commending us about the handling of the situation.
Let's turn our attention to the Sylvester Oromoni Jr. situation. We hear that the Lagos State government has cleared 5 students, 5 employees of Dowen College accused of complicity in the death of the 12-year-old. And that's according to following a legal advice from the DPP. Is this the end to this case? Can this be accurately translated to mean that case closed, investigation has ceased?
Well, in my own view, you cannot say, sitting down here and say that any case is closed. I'm not a lawyer, but I know that legal experts, they say that criminal matters like when people believe there was foul play in the death of anybody, that can be reopened anytime. But all I need to say, I do not want to comment about how the police have been doing their investigation. I'm not competent to comment about that. But the advice from the DPP is based on science. Because when you get to that kind of level, you push sentiment aside, you put emotion aside. Somebody is dead, too bad. So bad. We are all sad that that kind of thing happened. Nobody will have a son, and then you send his son to send him to school, and then that kind of thing that was said to have happened. But then, when we need to get to the root of the matter, for us to be able to stop that kind of calamity, we need to be very sure about what we are doing and about what we are saying. The DPP followed science. Autopsy, I think there was one in Delta State and another one here in Lagos State. So the investigators, they did everything to get to the root of the matter. And when you have this kind of a situation, there is no way you can have everybody who will be pleased. In fact, nobody will be pleased if you say that you have not been able to get hold of what actually happened. But I know that the police, they are going to do their job to look for whatever may have happened, and especially science that is provable, that is tangible.
Talking about science, the family has reacted to this development, and according to the father of the late child, he's saying that there was another autopsy carried out by the Delta State Police Command which suggested that his late son may have been fed with harmful chemicals. I understand that these are issues that are likely going to be debated in court and all of that. But beyond science, there is number one, the testimony of a dying child who did mention in front of a camera that this was what happened to him. There are reports that there were parents who had left this school who had similar concerns. I saw a Zoom meeting of a former teacher who claimed that while he was in school, there were cases of bullying and that there were not enough supervision, in the hostels where the students are kept. Are these concerns that the state government is also going to take seriously beyond science?
Yeah, these are concerns that the state government will take seriously. As I speak with you now, we have a committee that is going around the schools to see how they operate their boarding facilities, to see and then what can be done, to a team of experts who will go around all the schools, make recommendations, and then we will now have guidelines on how to run boarding facilities. It's not that you have a one-story building and you put in pupils there and then you start doing boarding. No, there are ways that hostels will now be built according to specification, which will be recommended by this committee, so that any time that you have a kind of a hostel like this, the hostel master we have a place where we be staying that it will be so close to the pupils, so that if you have any trouble either day or night, they can easily come to him, and then the school, we have to be able to hold responsible somebody who is also responsible, who will be able to see what is going on in such schools. So Lagos State government has appointed that committee, and that committee is going around as I speak with you. So anything that we can do to stop this kind of unfortunate incident, we are going to do it.
I have with me this morning the Lagos State Commissioner for Information, Magodo. We'll take a break now. When we return, we'll talk more about issues around transportation and security, and also open the phone lines to Lagosians. Stay with us. This morning, we're looking at Lagos and paying attention to some of the developing events in the new year. Magodo is Lagos State Commissioner for Information and Strategy. Thank you, sir, for staying the course on the program.
Thank you.
All right, so there's a new report by the Financial Derivatives Company, and it's very amusing and heartbreaking at the same time, that Lagosians spend 1,080 hours in traffic per year. And that would mean that at 55 years, you would have spent 7 years in traffic. That's a lot of man-hour lost. The state is considered to have one of the worst traffic gridlocks in the world. And it has become so numb, I mean, that we hardly even talk about it on election years. But how is government reacting to this?
Well, first, I would not want to condemn that report, but from the facts that I know, from research that I have done myself, if you talk about traffic situation, Lagos is not even listed among number 1 to 20 in the world where you have traffic problems. Lagos traffic problem is not as bad as what you have in Moscow. It's not as bad as what you have in Mumbai. It's not as bad as what you have in Chicago or in New York. But then it is a problem, and one of the electoral promises of the governor, Mr. Baide Sanwo-Olu, and I'm happy to stand there to say that he's tackling the problem, and people are seeing the effect. The problem is that we don't even look at the human factor. If you, no matter how big your road is, and if people decide to park on the road, and people don't want to obey traffic rules at all, there is nothing you can do about that. Because by the time you begin to ask last man to go all the way out against people who are disobeying traffic as we do in Lagos, you see people shouting human rights and all of that. And I would like to say it, that no matter how big a road is, like Ikorodu Road, for example, if those buses are not going to keep to where they are supposed to be at the bus stops, there's no way you won't have traffic on that road. The road is smooth, the road is well paved, and if you look at a place like Baga bus stop, for example, the lay-by that is there for buses to go into, they won't go in there, and they will park on the road. And there is little that the officials...
Are you saying that government is helpless when its people are lawless? Because one would expect that if there are structures, I mean, people will comply.
We need to have a kind of reorientation, because the government said that if you drive against the traffic, for example, that you forfeit your car. And people are forfeiting their cars are being auctioned. Yet our people will not stop driving against the traffic. So there's something fundamentally wrong with us. But I will not want to dwell so much on that. What is the government doing about this? You have seen that our junction improvement program has helped a great deal to reduce the traffic situation. If you go to not too far away from here, Allen Avenue, you see the roundabout that was removed from that place. It has helped a lot. The traffic improvement project has been able to resolve the traffic at Allen Avenue. Nowadays, if you go to Allen Avenue, it's just a free flow of traffic. If you go to Lekki, 2 roundabouts have been removed, and then the traffic is no longer as bad as it used to be. If there is so much traffic along that corridor now, it's going to be because of maybe the traffic lamp is not working, or there is an accident. Then if you go to Maryland too, the junction improvement program that was done is also working. Because at Maryland now, you don't see the kind of traffic that you used to see there since the removal of that roundabout. If you go to Ikotun, it's also there. But out of Ikotun, like I have said, the effect is not really felt the way it should have been felt because of the downfall drivers who will always want to park their vehicles on the road. What can the law do about this? The law can arrest them and then bring them before the law. They are fined and prosecuted, taken to mobile court, but yet this has not been able to stop it. We are just a unique people. So apart from the junction improvement programs, all of the street, the traffic lamps that were destroyed in Lagos, they have been replaced, and road signs are being mounted all the time. And then the way we fix potholes now is so fast that you can just see a big pothole here today, and before you wake up in the morning, it's filled, because the Public Works Corporation is working day and night to fix the roads. So the government is doing a lot of things to do this, but the citizens too, they have to play their own role. So for all these reports saying that you spend X amount of hours in traffic, and by the time you are 55, you will have spent so many years in traffic, all of that.
You don't agree with the reporter?
I do not.
So when VIO said this year that they were going to begin their no testing, no roadworthiness certificates, one of the concerns from Lagosians was the fact that there are still bad roads. And I understand that you made mention that government is working on roads, and which also seemed to be another challenge, because late last year we saw reconstruction ongoing at the same time and sometimes leading to traffic situation. Is there, a solution in sight to that?
Well, first let me just address the question of saying that there are still some roads, or many roads, that are left undone. Yeah, there are about 10,000 roads in Lagos. There's no way you can do all of them at the same time. But the administration of Mr. Baide Sanwo-Olu is trying to do as many roads as possible at the same time. And because of this, some people are applauding the government. Others are criticizing the government that because you are doing too many roads at the same time, you have been able to compound the traffic situation that the refurbishing of the roads, reconstruction of the roads is expected to resolve in the first instance. I would like to tell those people that they should just be patient, they should take it easy. It is not our problem. If you look at the Nigerian situation, there is hardly time for you to be able to construct roads, because between November and maybe March, April, that's all you have to build roads in Nigeria, especially in Lagos, where it's raining all the time. Before you know it now, the weather will just change, and then it will begin to rain. And when it's raining, you cannot do roads.
Please hold that thought, Honorable Commissioner. Let's attempt to open the phone lines. Emmanuel has called in from Aja. Good morning, Emmanuel. I think we lost that call. Keep trying. We'll prioritize calls from Lagos and Lagosians who would like to talk to Mr. Commissioner. So you're asking that it's important that Lagos or Lagosians show some patience. Is it a patience that is time frame, that you're saying, oh, within 1 year we'll be done with all of the roads we plan to build?
That's what I'm saying. Lagos has about 10,000 roads. You cannot do everything at the same time. And what we are doing, several people have saying that Lagos has become a massive construction site, and then they are praising us for that. Others are criticizing us for that, saying that it has contributed to the traffic situation that we set out to resolve in the first place. And my own answer to that is that in Nigeria, especially in Lagos, where we are surrounded by water, you have about 4 months to be able to construct roads. So if you cannot spend those 4 months to do as many roads as possible, you may be able to, at the end of the day, be unable to account for a huge number of roads that you may have touched. As from October, November, up to about March, April, if you don't do roads, then you are going to be in trouble, because as from May, June, July, is heavy rain, especially in Lagos. And when it's raining, it's difficult for us to do roads, because asphalt and water, they are no friends at all. So that is why we are trying as much as possible to fix as many roads as possible before the rains come. So I would like to seek the understanding of Lagosians to know that there is no gain without pain, and that the pain that we are going through now, at the end of the day, we are going to smile because we have happy motoring, smooth motoring, and then there will be no headache on the roads.
Apart from the man-hours lost to traffic itself also enables hoodlums to further rob people. I have been a victim of that. I think a little over 1 year ago in Oshodi, where, I was driving my pregnant wife, and these guys, were knocking violently on the door. They wanted to remove the, and it wasn't my car, it was office car. So I just went down and said, guys, what's up? They asked for money, I gave them money. They said it was not enough, forced themselves into the car. My wife was in shock. She was heavily pregnant. They took her phone, took mine, and it can really be, traumatizing. And that has been the experience of some Lagosians. Some have said that maybe when these constructions are ongoing, there should be presence of police, even though, they say there are people who have reported that it's happening here, the police are over there, they look elsewhere. But are there specific response to these particular concerns of security on the roads in traffic by Lagosians?
Yeah, I think there is a law that says the police should stop parading criminals on television. A few weeks ago, I was watching on television, I think your own station, a group of people paraded by the police who were arrested specifically because they were trying to steal from motorists. So if you go along this road or through Milan Bridge on Lagos-Ibadan Expressway, you find policemen on motorbikes going around looking for these guys. You find, the other day there was on your television too, I saw it when the governor was coming to work from Marina, and he got to around the church down the road there, and then saw some group of young people trying to steal from motorists. He was so angry himself that he defied the security council and then came down to enforce the arrest of these guys. So what I'm saying is that they are being arrested. And I would not want to say that what you are seeing now are isolated cases, but it's not as if the government is closing its eyes to this. The Commissioner of Police is concerned about this, and he has sent out his men to ensure that there are specific areas where this kind of thing happens, like where you have construction, as you have said, and then some of these guys, they get arrested. But the thing is that if you arrest some miscreants, it may not be enough for others to stop, because once this thing is ingrained in their minds, they do not find other things to do. But all I know is that the law will continue to take care of them, because we are equipping the police with the right equipment for them to be able to go after such guys. And let me just, even though it's late now, say that I sympathize with you with what you and your wife went through. Some people have also complained too. But as I speak with you now, if you get the police figures, you see how many of them, there are so many who have been arrested doing this. The thing is that you cannot, in a mega city, like a growing mega city like Lagos, where thousands of people come into every day without anything. The only thing they are holding is the hope that Lagos is just the place where they are going to get their dream center.
Dele has called in from Egbeda. Good morning, Dele. Oh my, I think we have a problem with the phone line, so we have just to continue with this conversation and hope that we can take one or two calls before the commissioner leaves the studio. The governor did mention a few days ago about the prospect of completing the blue and red rail by the end of this year. How much relief is that expected to bring, or pressure it's expected to take off from the roads?
So much pressure. But the good thing is that people are skeptical. They feel that the governor was just maybe making political statements when he said those lines, the blue line, the red line, will be completed. We went there about 3 days ago to see things for ourselves, and we met the contractors, and they made statements of commitment to the government and people of Lagos that by the end of this year and first quarter of next year, the service will run. And then we saw the progress that they have made. From the last time that we visited, and this time, we saw that a lot of, so much progress has been made. And from what I have learned, already the coaches are being built now. So any moment from now, even our officials will go and inspect those coaches. So the blue line that will run from Marina to Mile 2 is going to be able to, the volume of traffic in that on that corridor is very high. And if you know that you can board a train from Marina to Mile 2, and then from Mile 2 Okokomaiko to Marina, it will be very easy for people to go and stay in Badagry, to drive from Badagry just a few minutes and get to Mile 2, catch the train and come to Lagos Island. And the one that will run, the red line, the first phase that will run from Oyingbo to Agbado, that one too is going to take so much pressure off the road, because you find so many of our people who are living in Agbado in Ogun State and coming to Lagos Island, the heart of Lagos, to walk. They will be able to move easily instead of joining buses or driving their cars. They can easily join the train, which is comfortable, which is going to be running that distance in a matter of minutes.
Do you expect it to be affordable?
Oh, sure, because despite the fact that Lagos had to raise money to do this, Mr. Baide Sanwo-Olu is a very compassionate governor, and he's also always considering the social importance of government work, the social intervention that he does shows that this kind of project, whenever it's completed, is not supposed to be so hard on the pockets of Lagosians that you take them off the road and then you now bring them to the train, comfortable, fast, and all of that, and that they have to pay more for that. They are going to consider all of that.
Let's wrap this conversation with some cases of fire incidents in Lagos. Just yesterday, another one happened in the Butimeta area of Lagos, particularly the Plank Market there. Since 2015, it's been one case of fire incident or another. Let's take Tony's call. Tony is calling from Aja. Hello, good morning.
Yeah, good morning. How are you today?
Terrific.
I also want to say good morning to you. Hello?
We can hear you. Please go ahead, Tony.
Yeah, I also want to say good morning to you again. Thank you for the topic you guys are handling. I think basically the problem we have with our leaders that there is so much trust deficit between the citizenry and the leaders. I remember the gentleman we had, the commissioner, was on one of the programs that you see, the government will say one thing, and it will take time for them to be able to actualize whatever promises is. Part of the problem I think we have is Magodo issue has been on for so long, since 1980, several governments have come and gone. And it seems that there is no light at the end of the tunnel. It is very unfortunate what happens. They're talking about confederalism, but current governors or governors at the time, what are doing? If the Supreme Court makes a pronouncement and we cannot have justice being served, how do you think citizens should trust happening?
All right. The network is pretty bad, but I think you're trying to talk about the trust deficit between government and its citizenry, and he's also sampling the issue with the Magodo area where the court judgment has been there for many years. Do you want to quickly react to that?
Yeah, he's saying his own opinion about the suspicion between the government and the governed. Well, it's always there, and it's going to be there forever and ever. But concerning this Magodo issue, I am saying that Mr. Baide Sanwo-Olu, even before any uproar over Magodo at all, has set up a committee to go and resolve the matter. And the committee was on its way to resolving the matter when the incident happened. And in all sincerity, from the way the governor spoke yesterday and from the way all the parties of the matter spoke, is going to be resolved now. Whether it's been on for ages or not, and the governor has said that he is going to resolve it. I believe him because he's a man of his word and he's going to resolve it.
Finally, let me have your take on this, what appears to be perennial fire disaster in Ebutimeta.
Well, the Okobaba fire is not, it has become something that is yearly now. At times you have it twice a year. So what the government is trying to do is to move away the Okobaba people. And they have agreed to move. It's unfortunate that this kind of thing has happened again. They are to be moved to, I think, K2 or so, in the first quarter of this year. That's the agreement they have with the government. So I think the thing that is delaying the movement is the road to where they are being moved to. It's been built up, and then the road is being reconstructed now. And once the road is finished, they should be ready to move, and we won't we'll be spared about this kind of a fire at Okobaba again. But generally, this is the time for people to be very careful because of the weather. This is the time, especially in marketplaces, and then people should just take extra responsibility to ensure that they don't joke with things that can cause a fire.
Commissioner for Information and Strategy, Lagos State, Motosha, thank you so much for talking to us.
Thank you.
All right, that's our show today. We'll be back tomorrow, God willing, with another one. I am Nifemi Oguntoye. Good morning.